India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines this Monday evening. First up, Sri Lankan President Anura Dissannayake's maiden visit and the first foreign visit. Keeping with tradition, he comes to India, even as New Delhi and Colombo look to boost their ties going forward. Colombo gives New Delhi key security assurance. On Vijay Divas, Bangladesh interim government's advisor Mohammed Yunus announces polls for Bangladesh in 2025. What's the cause of delay? What can possibly happen in the next 14 months? India Global finds out. China's Xi Jinping urges party to turn the knife inward in yet another crackdown on corruption. Xi Jinping targets his closest confidants. Chinese economy, meanwhile, slows down as woes for the president continue. Cyclone batters the French territory, even as the cyclone is one of the worst to have hit France in the last 90 years, with over 700 people being affected. India marks the 53rd anniversary of Vijay Divas, pays homage to Indian soldiers who laid down their lives in a war against Pakistan, which led to the creation of Bangladesh. India commemorates the victory over Pakistan in the 1971 war. Our big story that we are tracking on India Global today is from Sri Lanka, and in fact the spotlight is on the India-Sri Lankan ties, where Sri Lankan President Anura Dissanayake has made his maiden foreign visit, and keeping with tradition, it is to New Delhi. And Prime Minister Modi held the first bilateral meeting with Dissanayake at Hyderabad House today, and both sides have signed 4 key agreements, including ramping up of energy ties by establishing electricity grid connectivity, multi-product petroleum pipeline in a collaboration with UAE. Most importantly, Dissanayake gave India a key security assurance that Sri Lankan territory will not be used for any activity detrimental to India, signalling that Colombo will not let China dock its vessels. President AKD chose India as his first port of call overseas after he took office a couple of months back. And President Murmu accorded a ceremonial welcome to the Sri Lankan president. In recent years, India has made significant investments to the tune of $5 billion and upwards in Sri Lanka. This is just the assurance and the assistance given to Sri Lanka in the last 2 years. Beyond that, infrastructure commitments have been very significant. India is the only country which now runs projects in all of the 25 districts of Sri Lanka. And listen in to what Prime Minister Modi had to say in that very important meeting that took place earlier today between the two leaders.
हम आशा करते हैं कि श्रीलंका सरकार तमिलों की आकांक्षाओं को पूरा करेगी और श्रीलंका के संविधान के पूर्ण इम्प्लीमेंटेशन और प्रोविंशियल काउंसिल इलेक्शन कराने की अपनी प्रतिबद्धता को पूरा करेगी। फ्रेंड्स, मैंने राष्ट्रपति दिसानायक को आश्वासन दिया है कि श्रीलंका के विकास के लिए अनेक प्रयासों में, उनके प्रयासों में भारत एक भरोसेमंद और विश्वसनीय पार्टनर बना रहेगा।
Also given an assurance to the Prime Minister of India that we will not allow our land to be used in any way in a manner that is detrimental to the interest of India. The cooperation of India will certainly flourish, and I want to reassure our continued support for India.
All right, those were very important sound bites. You heard the Prime Minister where he raised the issue of the Tamilian people. Remember, that's a cause that continues to remain a concern because Mr. Dissanayake, during his campaign trail and before that also, has taken a very sharp view when it comes to the cause of the Tamilian people, those who predominantly reside in the northern parts of Sri Lanka. Even as the President of Sri Lanka was very vocal in his clear assurance to India that he will not let Sri Lankan territory be used for any activity that is detrimental to India's interest. Let's get in Mohammad Ghazali, who's been tracking this meeting throughout the day and brings with us all the very latest in terms of this meeting and beyond. Ghazali, good to have you on the show. It's an important visit and a very important meeting. He's kept up with the tradition. First port of call continues to be New Delhi, and he's of course laid down some of those concerns of New Delhi. But what next in terms of this relationship?
See, we should not see this entire visit just through the prism of MoUs and agreements and what kind of investment India is going to make, because his entire visit is also part of an investment, because even before he was elected as president there, or before even he came to power, India was already in touch with the president of Sri Lanka, and before he was elected, our own foreign minister was in touch with him. President has also visited India before even fighting elections, and since then it was perhaps a kind of investment India was doing, thinking that when he becomes the president or comes to power, then for a long-term relationship is what India is looking ahead with Sri Lanka. And that is why, besides the MoUs, which generally with other heads of states also India does sign, in this particular visit, the statement, as you rightly pointed out, that the Sri Lankan president keeps talking about, reiterated that perhaps he will not cede any kind of a space to those forces on its territory who are sort of hostile to India, in an apparent hint towards China. And that is why those Chinese vessels which are docked there on the ports of Sri Lanka, we'll have to see whether it continues to do so, whether it continues to give them that space, because Sri Lanka is also trying to balance between India and China for its financial restructuring. As for restructuring its debt, India has played a huge role, and Prime Minister also spoke about it. It is not just the kind of transactional investment with Sri Lanka, but we also have cultural and civilizational connect, and that is why the president is also visiting Bodh Gaya in Bihar, one of the holiest sites for Buddhism. Besides that, as far as MoU and investment is concerned, certainly there are certain India's homegrown projects which will be replicated in Sri Lanka, like the DPI, the Digital Payment Initiative, though India has already invested and developed a mechanism for Indian tourists to sort of avail that benefit in Sri Lanka. But beyond that also, India will help Sri Lanka when it comes to Digital Payment Initiative. Beyond that, as you rightly pointed out, there is a trilateral project between India, Sri Lanka and UAE, where India will provide piped gas towards Sri Lanka. So these are also in a conceptual mode right now. Besides that, there is solar energy projects which are ongoing there, and India is also trying to invest into Sri Lanka, considering a long-term impact, because what we saw in Bangladesh, we had very good relations with Sheikh Hasina, but yet when she was ousted, an anti-India sentiment was very ripe on the streets of Dhaka. And since then, it appears so that Indian government is now looking for more people-centric diplomacy, like what we did in Maldives. We took out infrastructure projects there, we carried out infrastructure projects there, right. And that is exactly what the Prime Minister hinted when he spoke about the Pali language when it was officially announced as an official language in India. Exactly. People celebrated back there in Colombo. So there are many infrastructure projects which India is also aiming to carry out in Sri Lanka to ensure a people-to-people connect between the two countries.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, appreciate you really connecting the dots for us on a very important visit. It's a chilly winter evening in Delhi. We're talking about warmth, or a new warmth in the India-Sri Lanka relationship. Hope it continues from here on. All right, shifting focus now to the other big story that we are tracking, which is the Chinese economy. As things stand right now, it is in November, has sparked concerns as far as its ability to boost domestic demand. Now, data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that Beijing is facing challenges in balancing internal consumption with pressures from the global trade, raising questions about what lies ahead as far as 2025 is concerned. Retail sales, that are a key measure of consumer spending, grew by 3% in November compared to the last time last year. This was slower than October's 4.8% and 5.3% before that. Furthermore, China's property sector continues to remain a consistent and a persistent drag really on the economy, struggling with a slowing economy. Chinese President Xi Jinping is also struggling with internal strife within his party. President said that internal divisions within the ruling Communist Party were inevitable, but it must turn the knife inward to instill discipline in a new call to root out corrupt officials. Shifting focus now to the Middle East, where a large plume of smoke was seen over the skyline of the Gaza Strip on Monday as Israeli forces continued to strike the northern part of the enclave. In fact, some estimates from the Palestinian authorities suggest that the Gaza death toll could have reached 45,000. Remember, these are Palestinian authorities talking about the Gaza death toll. On Sunday night, an alleged Israeli strike hit a school in Khan Yunis. Hundreds of displaced were reportedly taking shelter at the school. As per Gaza's authorities, the strike killed at least 16 people and wounded dozens. Media reports are also claiming that Israel and Hamas are, in fact, closer than ever to any sort of a hostage ceasefire deal. In Tel Aviv, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived at a court to testify in his long-running trial on corruption charges. Netanyahu is testifying in the criminal trial for the third time on Monday, 8 years after the investigations into him were first opened. He faces charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust across 3 different corruption charges. Netanyahu's testimony follows years of investigations, deliberations and legal proceedings, and last week he became the first sitting prime minister in Israeli history to take the stand as a defendant. And speaking of the wide region, heavy Israeli airstrikes were reported in Syria's coastal Tartus region overnight on Sunday. They allegedly targeted the military strikes, remember, the sites. This is exactly where Russian presence was very significant, which has retreated in the last couple of days. These attacks were reported by local media and several monitors, with some footage distributed on social media showing explosions, particularly from the bombings. All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back with lots more stories on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Global with me, Gaurie Dwivedi. We now turn our attention to the other war that's raging, that is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It continues unabated, and fresh inputs that are coming in is from both sides, where they've said that they have repelled attacks. Russia has claimed that its forces have hit multiple Ukrainian military targets, including a fighter jet. Kiev has reported that its troops repelled Russian attacks as fierce battles raged on between the warring parties on Sunday. The Russian Defense Ministry has said in a briefing that its forces took control of 2 settlements and launched strikes on Ukrainian radars, military airport infrastructure and the Patriot missile launchers that are made by the US. Russian Air Defense Forces shot down a Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet, intercepted multiple rockets and more than 100 drones. Furthermore, the Russian military has also said that it continues to attack Ukrainian military personnel and equipment in Russia's Kursk region. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, on the other hand, has said that 100 fights on the front lines they have reported as of Sunday afternoon. Ukraine forces announced that the Russian army launched intensive attacks in the direction of several territories and that they continue to hold positions and have repelled several Russian attacks. In fact, in the Black Sea, 2 Russian oil tankers have been badly damaged, causing an oil spill. Footage released by Russia's Southern Transport Prosecutor's Office shows the bow of one tanker completely broken, with streaks of oil visible in the water. Both tankers are believed to have drifted before running aground offshore. At least 1 crew member was reportedly killed. The incident took place in the Kerch Strait. It separates Russia from Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula that is under control of Russia since 2014. Shifting focus now to the latest coming in from the French cyclone, where several hundred people, possibly even thousands, may have been killed when the most powerful cyclone in nearly a century hit the French Indian Ocean archipelago of Mayotte. Cyclone hit Mayotte overnight with winds of more than 200 kilometers per hour, damaging houses, government buildings as well as a hospital. It was the strongest storm in more than 90 years to hit the islands, and France is rushing help by ship and military aircraft to the region after the island was shattered by its worst storm in nearly a century. This report brings out the entire devastation in greater detail.
Buildings flattened, rooftops blown away, and destruction all around. This as a devastating cyclone swept through Mayotte, an overseas French territory in the Indian Ocean. According to the French Weather Service, Cyclone Chido brought winds in excess of 220 kilometers per hour, ripping metal roofs of houses. The French government said it was proving difficult to get a precise tally of the dead and injured amid fears that the death toll will rise, with some reports suggesting there could be hundreds of fatalities. Mayotte lies in the Indian Ocean off the east coast of Africa, just west of Madagascar. It has a population of around 300,000, spread over two main islands that lie around 800 kilometers off Mozambique. It is France's poorest island and the European Union's poorest territory. French authorities said that maritime and aerial operations were underway to transport relief supplies and equipment. Rescue workers are sifting through the debris in search of survivors. Widespread damage to infrastructure has severely hindered emergency operations, with some saying it's as if an atomic bomb fell on Mayotte. While French President Macron has said that he was closely monitoring the situation, the destruction on the tiny island has garnered reactions from across the globe.
Che il Signore ci dia la pace a tutti e preghiamo per le vittime del ciclone che nelle ore scorse ha colpito l'arcipelago di Mayotte. Sono spiritualmente vicino a quanti sono stati colpiti da questa tragedia.
Mayotte was directly in the cyclone's path and suffered extensive damage. The cyclone tore through the southwestern Indian Ocean over the weekend, impacting Mozambique and Madagascar before rapidly intensifying and slamming Mayotte. Studies suggest that cyclones are getting worse because of climate change. Since 2019, warmer temperatures have driven average wind speeds up by 29 kilometers per hour and pushed 3 hurricanes into the highest Category 5. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV.
All right, shifting focus now to Tulsi Gabbard, who is President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence. She made a trip to the Swaminarayan Temple in New Jersey. These visuals tell you a practicing Hindu. She was there and it coincided with the 103rd birth anniversary of Swami Pramukh as well. Take a look at this report that tells you this visit, its significance in greater detail.
Four-term U.S. Congresswoman and President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, made a special visit to the Baptist Temple in New Jersey. Her visit coincided with the 103rd birthday anniversary celebrations of Pramukh Swami Maharaj, whose teachings of selfless service, humility, and devotion continues to inspire millions. A practicing Hindu for many years, Gabbard holds the distinction of being the first ever Hindu and American Samoan elected to the U.S. Congress. She was first elected as a 21-year-old to Hawaii's House of Representatives, but had to leave after being deployed to Iraq. She was later elected to Congress representing Hawaii, where she took the oath on the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu devotional work. A veteran of over 2 decades, she left the Democratic Party in 2022 and endorsed Trump, quickly gaining support among his followers. For over a decade, she's had the unwavering support of Indian American Hindu leaders, including those at BAPS. Her speech brought together women of all ages, celebrating the legacy of Pramukh Swami Maharaj and highlighting the timeless values of faith, service, and compassion in our daily lives.
We've talked a lot about peace and harmony and unity and joy throughout the last couple hours that I've been here. And that message, those powerful messages that we all strive to bring in our everyday lives, wherever we may be, in our prayers, in our own personal spiritual practice, is timeless and also could not be more important than the times we face now.
After the event, Gabbard also spoke passionately about how her Hindu faith has been a guiding force in her public service journey.
The teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita that are centered around love for God, and what better way to express our love for God than expressing our love and kindness for each other. And I've chosen to dedicate my life in service to God and to others. And that has taken different shapes and different forms. But as long as I am committed to that path, then I know my life will be successful.
As Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence faces some pushback in Washington, with some leaders questioning her experience as well as credentials for the job, it remains to be seen whether she will land the prestigious role. Nonetheless, Gabbard has been a unifying force, particularly in bringing people together, strengthening bonds, and fostering greater understanding across cultural lines.
Zakir Hussain, tabla maestro, breathed his last in San Francisco. And when his breath stopped, that's when India also skipped a beat. Someone who's been a champion of Indian culture, Indian music, Indian classical art at his very best. This obituary tells you exactly why he will be missed. His art will continue to live on.
The world mourns the loss of Ustad Zakir Hussain, a virtuoso who transformed the art of tabla playing and brought Indian classical music to the global stage. Born on March 9, 1951 in Mumbai, Zakir Hussain was destined for musical greatness as the eldest son of legendary tabla maestro Ustad Allah Rakha. A child prodigy, he began touring by the age of 12, mesmerizing audiences with his innate rhythm. Hussain's collaborations transcended cultural boundaries. In 1975, he co-founded the fusion group Shakti with guitarist John McLaughlin, pioneering a new genre that blended Eastern and Western musical traditions. Shakti made India proud as it brought home the 2024 Grammy Award. Throughout his illustrious career, Zakir Hussain received numerous accolades, including India's prestigious Padma Shri in 1988, Padma Bhushan in 2002, and Padma Vibhushan in 2023, recognizing his unparalleled contribution to music. Beyond performance, he was a dedicated educator and cultural ambassador, inspiring a new generation of musicians and promoting Indian classical music worldwide. Ustad Zakir Hussain's rhythms may have fallen silent, but his legacy resonates in the hearts of music lovers around the world. His life was a symphony of dedication, innovation, and passion. A true maestro whose influence will echo through the ages.
On that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side with our first key discussion, which is Dissanayake's visit. What does it signal for India-Sri Lanka relations, and does it mean a pivot to New Delhi for Colombo? Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Global, our first big debate. AKD's visit and what it means for India-Sri Lanka relationship at a time when there's been a lot of talk about whether AKD will strengthen the relationship or could it hit choppy waters in the Indian Ocean. Well, Prime Minister Modi held the first bilateral meet with the newly elected Sri Lankan president at Hyderabad House today. Both sides signed important MoUs ranging from energy connectivity to petroleum to, of course, how to further build on the infrastructure. Colombo also gave India a key security assurance that it will not use its territory or not let its territory be used for anything that could be anti-India, signaling that Colombo will not let China dock its vessels. This isn't the first time. Well, there have been several instances in the past where Chinese vessels have docked on Sri Lankan waters, and that has really created very intense security concerns in India in policy corridors, something that President Dissanayake now wants to address in his very first foreign visit, which was, of course, to India, keeping up with traditions of the previous Sri Lankan presidents as well. President Dwivedi Murmu also accorded a ceremonial welcome to the newly appointed Sri Lankan president. Several investments have been promised from India's side, and really remains to be seen that where does the India-Sri Lanka relationship go from here. Remember, Sri Lanka is key to both India's neighbourhood first policy as well as Sagar outlook. But what happens in terms of the next phase of the India-Sri Lanka relationship? What's the China aspect of this relationship? What does it mean in terms of the security assurance? Does it mean that AKD has now pivoted towards India? Remember, India gave $5 billion worth of assistance in the last 2 years to Sri Lanka in its darkest economic hour. Does that mean that it will be no more of Chinese vessels being allowed to dock and Sri Lankan waters? And most importantly, what does it mean in terms of the larger relationship that India has in this entire region? That's exactly a question I'm going to pose to my guests joining me on the broadcast. Rohan Samarajiva as well as Manju Seth. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on this discussion. Let me start with you, Rohan. You're joining us from Colombo. We're talking at a time when there's been a lot of talk about the India-Sri Lanka relationship, which way it could go. One thing is clear, AKD has kept up the tradition of coming to New Delhi like several of the previous Sri Lankan presidents. He's given a very unequivocal assurance that Colombo's territory will not be used for anything that could be seen as anti-India. How should New Delhi be reading this, and how do you see the India-Sri Lanka relationship under AKD's tenure from here on?
I think all the optics are good. I think this is what one would expect from a ceremonial location and a negotiated document of this nature. However, I don't think there's any commitment not to let any ships dock in Sri Lanka. It doesn't get to that level of specificity because I think you need to look at what not endangering India's security means. It doesn't necessarily mean not allowing a single Chinese ship to dock in Colombo. I think the more positive side is India and Sri Lanka have agreed on hydrographic research, because that has been the sticking point about research vessels and the conducting of joint or Chinese-led research in the region. I think there's got a lot of possibilities there. Very significant from Sri Lanka's perspective is that all the connectivity issues that we've been talking about, that is pipelines, bridge, grid connection, are mentioned. And that's something in a way new for us from this particular political party and given their past statements.
But let me ask you,
very positive.
Let me ask you on what you said at your opening comment, which is that Chinese vessels could still dock. Is that how you read it?
Yeah, I don't think there's any. You see, there's an agreement right now till the 31st of December about research vessels not being allowed to come to Sri Lanka. Now, what you got to do is watch what happens to that agreement, how that is renewed or what terminology is used in that. You're not going to get little minute details, granular details about ships docking in a document of the nature that was released today.
Manju Seth, how do you read this and respond to what Mr. Rohan has just said about Chinese vessels? Because that continues to remain a key concern for New Delhi, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, again, I agree with him that, the thing is that there is no specific mention or reference to Chinese vessels per se. But yes, if any of these Chinese vessels are, are in a sort of, are those that pose some kind of threat or challenge to India's security, like last time there was some talk of nuclear powered and some other research vessels which were coming in, very close to our space installations, etc. So all those kind of aspects where there could be a negative or antagonistic kind of situation. Yes, I think there Sri Lanka will be sensitive to our concerns. Yes, but any ordinary Chinese ship coming in and docking there, I think they may not, because they have to maintain, I think, good ties with China as well. It's in their interest. They have to balance the ties, and they cannot completely sort of rule out any good partnership.
So Manju, according to you, ma'am, what would be the primary or the biggest takeaway from this? One is, of course, the optics are correct. There is willingness on both sides to engage and take this forward. But what's your biggest takeaway from this visit?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that he has come here for the first time. And despite the fact that, he was seen as a leftist supported and, maybe even there was talk of his being probably pro-China. But the fact that he has come here first, it's a signal that the ties are important for him as well with India. And he has also given an assurance that for any activity on Sri Lankan soil, anti-India activity or any possibility of any anti-India activity on Sri Lankan soil will not be permitted. So I think these two are very important. And he has made this commitment, and I think it is in our interest to meet him and to carry this forward, including in all the other areas that have been discussed, including renewable energy.
Indeed.
Yes, and there are many new areas which have come up, and I think that is a very positive
aspect of this discussion today. Absolutely. Roman Samarajiva, let me then ask you this, that the Prime Minister did mention about the Colombo security dialogue. He did mention about the security framework. How do you read that in a very involving geopolitical scenario in the Indian Ocean?
Well, these are all very important. I think these are developments that have been coming. So, for example, the security assurance that we've been talking about has been given by the previous governments as well. So this engagement on security, not only that, we've had, I think, joint military naval exercises in the past. These are all good things, and these are things that should be encouraged from both sides.
All right, let's leave it there. Rohan Samarajiva and Manju Seth, thank you so much for taking out the time speaking to me on an issue that I'm sure we'll come back and revisit again, simply because it's so very important. India-Sri Lanka ties, where are they headed, specifically given the fact that China continues to remain a concern. All right. On that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side and talk more about, Bangladesh. What is Mohammad Yunus's plan for return to democracy, and why is it 14 months into the future? Stay with us. We come back with that big discussion. Welcome back. You're watching India Global. We now turn our focus to the latest that's unfolding in Bangladesh. Remember, since 5th of August, Bangladesh has been in a situation of turmoil. And now the interim leader, Mohammad Yunus, has said that elections may be held at the end of 2025 or in early 26, which means anywhere between 12 to 13 or maybe 14 months from now. Pressure, remember, has been growing on him ever since the 5th of August when the uprising took place. It toppled the government, and since then Bangladesh has been in turmoil with no clarity on when it will return to democracy. Now, Mohammad Yunus and his advisors have also been saying that reforms need to take place before a democracy can actually return. How long will that take? Which are the kind of reforms, and will they actually move Bangladesh forward? Those have been questions that India Global has been asking relentlessly the last couple of months. And now we ask this question, that when Bangladesh hopes to return to democracy, why the delay? What is the plan in place? We talk on more of that, but first up, listen in to this soundbite that's come in of Mohammad Yunus when he said that he would like Bangladesh, or he's announced that Bangladesh would return to democracy. Remember, ongoing is the case regarding Chinmay Krishnadas, a man who's been behind bars on very stiff charges related to sedition. He's not been getting bail. The matter is now going to be taken up only on the 5th of January, a case that pretty much exemplifies and signifies the fight for getting justice for minorities in Bangladesh. Before we move any forward, let's listen in to this conversation that my colleague Saurabh had with Chinmay Krishnadas's lawyer.
Joining me now, senior advocate Ravindra Ghosh. He practices in the Supreme Court in Bangladesh, also a human rights lawyer. And you're representing Chinmay Krishnadas in the Chittagong court. While you were presenting his case in court, you were pushed from behind, that's what you said?
That is true. First day, when I was arguing with the judge, then somebody, I don't know them because they are the junior lawyers. They are all junior lawyers. Then, why you have come here? Why you have come here? Somebody pushed me, one person. But police was there at that time. But he is denying.
Now, when is the bail hearing expected for Chinmay Krishna Prabhu?
On 2nd of January 2025. So I expect that judge may reject it, judge may allow it. It is up to the power of the judge. It is the discretionary power of the judge. Nobody can put. But I am anticipating that he will not pass any order on that date also. Because some political personality putting pressure on the judges also. This is my expectation. I don't know what will happen on that very day.
Sir, there is a lot of respect for you, and I think in one video you said that, how your work in human rights, you don't see which religion one person belongs to when you do that work, and you fought so many cases, like you said, for Muslims in Bangladesh. How bad is the situation for minorities in places like Chittagong, Rangpur, where the violence is more saturated?
Yes, I know everything. Because when Chinmay Prabhu with his party, with his people, went to Rangpur, what happened? Police has locked his room first. He has booked the room, giving some amount of money. Then how police can lock the room of Chinmay Prabhu and others? What is this? Is it quite illegal? Ultra-virus, inoperative, without any lawful authority also. So, I protested, then I phone call with commissioner, police commissioner. Why you have not? They said, no, we have not done it. So who has done it? Police has done it, but police is refusing, denying all these things.
So is your life safe? Is Chinmay Krishna Prabhu's life safe in the current situation in Bangladesh?
It is up to Bhagavan or Ishwar or Allah. It depends upon. I do not know, but I will have to fight for him. Because he has become alone now. No lawyers is capable to go to the court. Because there are so many cases against them. 71 lawyers are under now threat.
So what is the issue that is happening right now in Bangladesh, specifically regarding Chinmay Krishnadas? Let's get in Mohammad Kamaruzzaman, who's a senior journalist joining me from Dhaka. There are two aspects that we discussed today. One is what's happening with Chinmay Krishnadas, and one is the plan or the hope, I would say, the hope to return to democracy for Bangladesh. Let me first ask you that 2025, end of 2025, you will get a chance to exercise your right to vote, or maybe it will happen in 2026. Are you okay with that?
Thank you very much for having me. Actually, the movement, through which Dr. Yunus have got the chance to run the country as the head of the interim government was actually one of the main demands was the democratic process, fair election, participatory election, and credible election. So this is a very big challenge for Dr. Yunus now to hold a participatory election, and this announcement will make people happy in Bangladesh that the election is going to be held within next 1 year or 1 year and some months. So the main challenge will be creating a level playing field and make all the stakeholders happy and join the election process. So we are also hopeful that as there is no political pressure now, it's not a political government also. So holding a fair election will be a good opportunity for Dr. Mohammad Yunus also to serve
Who
the
will
country
decide it's a
in this
fair
critical
election,
situation.
sir? Who will decide it's a free and fair election?
It has already been declared several times by the interim government, Dr. Mohammad Yunus and his press secretary, all the high officials, advisors of the government. Several times they assured that they are very much determined to hold the election in a free, fair, and participatory manner, so that it can be very credible before the world also.
Let's get in Muqtadir Rashid as well to talk more about the situation unfolding in Bangladesh. Mr. Rashid, I told you I'm going to give you a chance to speak, and today is your chance. But let's be very unbiased and fair today. In your assessment, why should Bangladesh take another 12 to 14 months to hold elections? Why not sooner?
Okay, it's because of Sheikh Hasina. Then again, you have to remember what she has
Sheikh Hasina
made.
has been in exile. 5 months almost have gone by.
Of course, but the system she has broken over the years. So what she has done, she has destroyed all the democratic institutions over the years. In the 15 years of her rule, she has crippled the judiciary. She has crippled the independent election mechanism, and especially the whole administration and the police. So the Yunus government needs fair time to repair those, to hold a free, fair, and credible election. Of course, that should be participatory, that should be fair, so that people can vote. It should be neutral, so that the party or the independent candidate also feel comfortable to participate in an election. And the people here over the years really eager to vote in that manner. So the vote in Bangladesh, like in India, is always a festival for the people or the voters here. But it has marred by it has been marred by the ruling class at the time, especially the Hasina regime. They didn't allow the people to cast their vote.
Then let me then ask you also, when you talk about free and fair elections, one also needs to talk about the minorities and what's happening related to Chinmay Krishnadas. How do you see that? We played a conversation with his lawyer a short while back, and he did say that it's not a level playing field. What about the Hindu minorities in Bangladesh? Do you think they will get redressal ahead of an election? Because how else do you create free and fair election?
Of course, the minorities should be given enough sense of security so that they can be, they can vote their candidates meaningfully. And of course, and I do believe that Chinmay Krishnadas should get legitimate option for defend what she has to say to the court. And I don't see that he's getting justice, because he has been barred for a long time. And if he commits any kind of crime, he should be, given enough chance to defend that. But we haven't seen that. Unfortunately, he's in bar for 1 month, and I don't think this is a valid reason for he is in jail. He should be, you have the judicial process. He can get enough chance to get, to get released and on bail, and he can, as long the, case or investigation is going on, he can be in the country and he can talk to investigator, being other people, like he can be in at his home, and he can attend the trial if there is any. He is in jail, a priest in jail. There's a very bad sign for Bangladesh, and I don't agree with this kind of the kind of action that this government is taking right now.
Yes. All right, Muqtadir Rashid and Mohammad Kamaruzzaman, thanks much for speaking to me in terms of the latest that's unfolding in Bangladesh. Shifting focus now to the newly crowned world chess champion D. Gukesh. He's returned to home to an enthusiastic reception as hundreds of fans and officials from the Tamil Nadu government and the National Federation lined up to receive him. And indeed, India salutes the new Grand Master Gukesh for being crowned the 18th World Chess Champion at a young age of 18. Rousing welcome awaited him. Listen in to what the young chess champion had to say.
My target has always been to become the best player in the world. There are a lot of strong players, and I still have a lot of improvement to do. And players like Magnus, they keep motivating me to work harder. And although this is a big achievement, and I know it comes at a very young age, I think that it's still a very, very long way to go, and my goal is to keep enjoying chess and to have a very long career, and hopefully to one day to become the best player in the world.
All right, Mukti Yodhas or war veterans of Bangladesh have arrived in Kolkata for the Vijay Diwas celebrations in the Eastern Command headquarters today. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee made her first appearance at the event. The Vijay Diwas celebrations and the visit of the two countries' delegations come amid strained ties between India and Bangladesh related to violence over minority Hindu community in Bangladesh. Both India and Bangladesh celebrate the victory over Pakistan on 16th of December 1971 that birthed Bangladesh. They invite each other's war veterans and serving officers to celebrate Vijay Diwas, commemorate the victory over Pakistan, which led to the creation and birth of Bangladesh. All right, with that is a wrap on this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.